In this video, I'll be breaking down the secrets on how Metro makes his dark melodies. In most of Metro's production, you'll hear three key elements: bells, piano, and strings. He also uses brass and samples, but I won't be covering those in this video. And for this sample, the first sound I started off with was this bell from Analog Lab. It's the Bell Zap preset by Near, and this is just what that sounds like. And what makes this melody super dark is these two notes here, the half step. And whenever you use these two notes or a half step in a sample or whatever, it creates tension and darkness. So when you're trying to make dark samples, try use half notes. And another key element of Metro's production is using the same 2-bar loop or 4-bar loop just to create like some sort of repetitiveness that sticks in the listener's head. And for the effects, all I added is this OTT, just to add a bit of multi-band compression, an EQ to cut out some of the lows, and then a halftime which I added in certain parts just to halftime the melody and create a bit of variation, just like this part. And a tip I learned a while ago to keep your melodies like interesting while using minimal sounds to leave space is to have, say, a 4-bar loop or 8-bar loop, and then say have a halftime for one part, pitch it up an octave, pitch it down an octave, take halftime off, pitch it up, pitch it down, stuff like that, just to keep the melody interesting. Then the next sound is this Violin from BBC Spitfire Audio. It's free, and once again it's using the half notes, the half steps here, and this is just what that sounds like. And in the second half, instead of the second note going down to A, I brought it up to C, just so it adds a bit of variation and so the melody doesn't get stale, I guess. And I just added a shaper box just to pan it left and right, just to add a bit of movement. And the last melodic sound I added is this piano from Analog Lab. It's called the Cinema Layer preset. And what it's doing is just playing a G note, just a bunch of different octaves, just to fill up a bunch of space in the sample. And the cool thing about this preset is it's laid with some strings. You'll hear that you can kind of hear the strings in the background, which fits well with the other strings that I added. But anyway, this is what that sounds like. Oh yeah, I like how the strings, it kind of swells towards the end of a bar. And what I did to add a little like top line melody is I got the original melody and I double timed it. So the original melody was something along the lines of this, but what I did is I just brought this little arrow and time stretched it so it's half the time. And this is what that sounds like. Once again, just add a bit of variation and a little top line to the sample. And I didn't add any effects to that, but what I did is I routed everything to a mixer track. And what I did is added a RC20, just to add a bit of vintageness, to add a bit of texture or whatnot. And I added a reverb because, as Metro said,
I just think reverb makes everything sound a little cooler.
And the reason I routed everything together into one bus is to glue everything together and make it sound cohesive, rather than have a plate reverb here, a room reverb here, a dry reverb here, stuff like that. I'd rather make it sound super cohesive, as if it was recorded in the same room or together. And then once I did that, I also routed that to its own mixer track and pretty much the master. Then I added a effect track. It's just the basic vintage punch preset, and then a sound shifter pro just to pitch it down to. I also added this rain texture just to add a bit of noise in the background to make it sound more retro. But that's pretty much the secrets on how Metro makes his samples. Let me know what type of videos you guys want to see. Follow me on Instagram and all that at Louis Oblin. And yeah, here's the final sample with just some basic ass drums.